Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm as always your host, Brody Robertson, and today we are back for one of the indie game episodes. So, how about you just introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
All right, how you going, Brody?
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
Good. I'm Kai, Kyoti Games. I'm making a game called Scourge of the Reptiles, and I'm from South Australia, which is part of Australia.
That would make sense, yeah. But
Adelaide,
not
to
the
be
most southern
specific.
point, which I will never understand the naming of that.
Yeah, well, that would be Tassie, I guess.
Was
But what's that?
Sorry, just random side tangent. Was Tasmania known about when Australia was first discovered? Probably not. I would imagine it probably wasn't.
I think Tassie probably would have been a secret, like Secret Island.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't matter at
Secret
all. Anyway,
secret loot.
secret loot. Yeah, we'll go with that one. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so I've been working on Scourge of Reptiles for a couple of years, 2.5 years now. And it's a role-playing game. It's a retro game. It's sort of built to look like mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So your pixel art and your kind of top-down aspect kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
with turn-based combat and role-playing elements. Exploring, looting, all that stuff. The theme of the game is dinosaurs. So Scourge of the Reptiles refers to the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a prehistoric role-playing game, and it's a bit of an idea I had a while back to make something prehistoric where you could roll some dice and kill some monsters, but those monsters happen to be dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
And those the reason why there's humans and dinosaurs, well, it's fantasy, so just make it up as you go.
Sure,
But
sure.
basically, a big meteorite fell from the sky and crashed into the planet, which may or may not be Earth. We don't really know. And it came with it a whole bunch of magic, and that magic sort of gave spell casting to the humans, accelerated the progress of their sentience, such that they were able to be in the same time zone as the dinosaurs. But it also had a number of other strange effects, magical powers for various creatures, mutations. So there's all sorts of weirdness going on in the timeline, but also in the biology of the creatures of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going through I got the trailer playing in the background. There was giant beetles
Mm,
that were like,
mm.
7 foot tall. So it's not just dinosaurs there. You're like, hey,
That's
dinosaurs are
it.
the main focus, but if I want to
Yeah.
add something else that's cool.
It's a bit of a hot pot, really.
Mm-mm.
Like I just wanted to put in anything that's damn cool. It's a bit inspired by Harryhausen, Ray Harryhausen, who made these stop motion movies that inspired, the likes of Star Wars and things like that. And so back then there wasn't just dinosaurs like a million years BC and that kind of thing. There was giant insects as well. Your giant scorpions, your giant spiders. They very much featured in these stop motion movies,
Mm-mm.
and so yeah, they're in the mix, and classical monsters as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You kind of the kind of monsters you might find in a D&D game, like your dragons and your minotaurs and all that.
Right, right. But the way I understand it is it's supposed to be a bit more grounded than that. Like it's mainly
Hmm.
focused on like the dinosaurs, that prehistoric time, but it's like with magic as well. It's not trying to go all
Hmm.
in on hyper fantasy, if I understand correctly.
That's it, yeah. So you could call it low fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
There's it's kind of it's a vibe of D&D type of world where the magic is slightly less powerful. So that gives it more of a realistic element. A bit of a survival kind of vibe to it as well. And yeah, the sort of the main driving. The main controlling of the countryside is done by the dinosaurs. So
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of in control of the countryside, and the humans are, they're doing the best they can. They're just trying to survive by getting out of reach,
Mm-hmm.
typically.
So,
But
ooh,
yeah.
I was gonna say, are the dinosaurs still just like are they just beasts, or is there something more there? There is some added intelligence to them as well.
Well, some of the dinosaurs have got additional magical powers, so it gives them not just a flavor that comes from this magical meteorite, but it also gives them kind of a little bit of a something different to use in combat. So it being turn-based tactical combat, if everything just has teeth, it gets a little bit boring.
Right.
But if you you throw in magical abilities like some dinosaurs might be able to slow you down. Other dinosaurs might be able to throw out some darkness into the area. Other dinosaurs might be able to summon minions. This kind of makes the tactical element a bit more interesting.
Right.
So yeah, you never know what you're up against. You might sort of run into a dinosaur that you think it's just a Stegosaurus, but it's going to have a magical power you didn't see coming, and that's going to be interesting.
Right, because there's only so many interesting things you can do when it's like, okay, so we have a dinosaur. What can they do? They can run, so maybe you can give them a dash. They can fight. Maybe you can give the ones where they have like horns, they could like pick something up and throw it, and armor. And that's kind of the extent if you just purely go with what like a dinosaur could do. You can't really extend it much beyond that with just trying to fully stay within that realm.
Yeah, and obviously you could say you could give them intelligence, and that will increase their options. There is some races in the world that are part dinosaur, part human. They're more kind of intelligent, so they have spells and they have abilities like intimidation and abilities they can use, skills they can use in combat. But the dinosaurs without the intelligence, they might slam you and knock you to the ground. They might take advantage of the kind of terrain around them as well, but mostly they're just going to be biting you into pieces. Right. So, but it's a case of using your abilities, your magical ability, your party's abilities in the best way to survive those difficult combats too.
So when it comes to combat, at least from what I can tell, like the easiest thing for most people to compare it to now would be something akin to like a Baldur's Gate. Like it's a CRPG and they're not exactly super common nowadays. You got to go back a few years for them to go back to the 90s and be really common, but even just go back to like, 2012 or so, and you have a couple of things that are sort of hanging on around then.
Yeah, things did change for a while there. And, the CRPG, as you said, was super popular in the 90s. And not just the Western ones, but the Eastern Japanese type ones as well. They had turn-based combat. They had a party of adventurers that you would select, and you would travel around with your whole party. And, you would do quests and things like you would do in any other role-playing game. But, you typically see your whole party from above, and that's the CRPG. I don't know, why they became less popular, but it's got to be the invention of the 3D video card, I think, because that enabled you to do a first-person perspective. So all of a sudden you had Morrowind, you had World of Warcraft, you had these kind of games where you see either over the shoulder or first-person perspective, and then you Skyrim, and, that's a very immersive game. It obviously takes a lot of developers to make that kind of game too. And so the old top-down role-playing game became less popular, but I think it's great because when you look down on your party from above, you can really see everything that's happening. You can tactically work out, I want my fighter over there, and I want I want my mage to be hiding behind that rock, and all that stuff. You can't easily do that in first person.
Right.
Even when you've got a party. And you can see that when you play a game like Dragon Age, or you play a game like Knights of the Old Republic. The tactical element is quite different because you basically can't see the whole party at once.
I think
that's why I think that Baldur's Gate 3 went back to top-down. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of what You were saying about like the invention of like the 3D graphics cards and all this stuff.
Hmm.
I think a big part of the reason why they were so common back in the 90s is because you could make really good looking backgrounds through pre-rendered graphics. And
Yeah.
those games were some of the best looking games in the market. And if you go back and look at them
Mm.
now, yes, the actual resolution of the background texture might be a bit low, but like they had really clear artistic vision for what they were trying
Mm.
to do with those games. And most
Yeah.
of those games, if you look at a game from the 90s that's a pre-rendered graphics versus some early 3D game from then, there is a
Yeah.
night and day difference. The
Oh, yeah.
pre-rendered graphics, it could be an indie game that came out today.
Yeah.
The 3D games, you're like, okay, like I know it looked good for the time, but
Mm.
it in many cases haven't really aged that well, especially when you start moving a bit further forward into the PS1 sort of era. Those sort
Yep.
of 3D games really don't age well, but when
Yeah.
you have those beautiful 2D graphics,
Yeah.
that'll be a timeless style.
Yeah. I can go back and play Baldur's Gate number one or
Mm.
Fallout number one from the late 90s. I can go back and play them now and still think they look absolutely gorgeous.
Mm.
They're hand painted backgrounds in Baldur's Gate, and the characters are animated with, rendering machines. They're pre-rendered into sprite sheets,
Mm.
and they look. I think they look gorgeous. They don't have the kind of modern lighting that you do in a 3D game now, but in terms of the way that the world looks and the way that the world immerses you, I think that hand painted background just looks so good. And the same goes, I think, for the tile based games, like, Zelda and the Final Fantasy type games where the world is made up of tiles. I think that quite often those games look really beautiful as well, because a lot of work has gone into drawing each of those elements in pixelized pixel format, and they just look very artistic, very stylistic, and I think that the early 3D games, in particular, look terrible in comparison, and they didn't really look good to my eyes until about 2002, when you got Neverwinter Nights. Mate, 2 came along. Neverwinter Nights 1, I think looked pretty good.
Well, Final Fantasy X came out in
Mm,
2001, and that kind
yeah.
of was like the benchmark for how good 3D graphics at the time could be.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And but before that was PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because on PlayStation 1, the textures were so, I don't know, blurry, because they didn't they didn't have the kind of filtering that they picked up on the later console version. So they really look kind of gross. They were low texture quality, very small textures. And then when you angle the texture, because they didn't have the filtering, it just looked like a blur. Did not look good at all. But obviously, you just need more power in your console to handle that.
Lately, I've been playing through Final Fantasy X, which was that
Yep.
first swap from the pixel art graphics into that 3D, but they did the sensible thing and had pre-rendered backgrounds. And the
Yes.
backgrounds in 7, because you can frame the shot in the way where you always want the player to be focused on a certain thing, as opposed to, modern games where you have a full 3D camera, you can angle it wherever you want. It's a lot harder
Yeah.
to sort of draw someone's attention to something. But if you can't turn the camera and you can draw the background in a way where there is a clear point of interest, you can build everything around that and create just incredibly gorgeous scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can get your lighting just just right in that kind of single perspective. And then you can get the colors just how you want them, because it's pre-rendered and you can just do that. Yeah, I think that those pre-rendered backgrounds look really nice. And you would see quite a lot of that in the late 90s, where games would pre-render their backgrounds and even render their character sprites. Not just Abe's Odyssey, which was a very tricky platform game. But there was Crusader No Remorse, where they did the rendering, Donkey Kong Country, they rendered
Mhm.
those sprites. And rendered backgrounds were pretty popular in adventure games like Myst as
Mhm.
well. And I think they look vastly better than the 3D games of the time until the sort of early 2000s where things changed and got better.
Mm. I
Yeah.
get people having nostalgia for those games because they might have played them as a kid, but
Mm.
like 3D games are always going to age a lot worse than good pixel art graphics, right? Like
Yeah.
there's modern techniques that you can use for making the games look better, like modern lighting, modern shadows, things like that. But
Mm.
you know, games that, especially games that are trying to look realistic, like you go back and
Hmm.
look at like Metal Gear Solid, for example,
Yeah.
really good looking game for the time,
Hmm.
but like those early models were a little rough. And I would
Oh yeah,
say,
they looked really dull
mm,
and chunky.
I
Go on.
think the point of diminishing returns is probably, I would say, late PS3.
Yeah.
After that, it's just like you don't really notice any major improvements in gaming past that point. Like past that, we've had
Mm.
ray tracing
Hmm.
and
That's about it.
yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, it's totally true. Like, resolutions have been increasing and detail has been increasing, but very slowly.
Mhm,
When I look back at some of the games on, from around 2010
mhm,
to 2012, like Skyrim again or Grand Theft Auto 5, I look
mhm,
at those
mhm.
games and I just go, that could easily be a game that is made now.
Well, in a lot of
Like the
cases, they do
detail level is
re-release it on
they
a modern
release
console.
them. Yeah, that's right. All they do is just put a little shine of paint on the textures and re-release it. And so basically we're looking at nearly 15 years where games have barely changed at all
Mhm,
in terms of the way they look. Whereas in that period of time in the 90s, things changed so rapidly. You went from 8-bit in the mid 80s to
mhm,
late 80s to 16-bit, and you may not have been there, but that was just jaw-dropping, the
mhm,
difference between those two generations. And then you went to rendered technology, as we've just been talking about, and then you went to 3D, and all of that in the space of 10 years.
mhm,
And
mhm,
it was just bananas how much change took place in the realm of graphics. At the
mhm,
same time, music was changing rapidly too.
mhm,
You went from chip tunes to mods
mhm,
to MP3s to CD audio in 10 years.
mhm, mhm,
That's just so much change. Um, and but I really like this period of graphics.
mhm.
Like I didn't make the Scourge of the Reptiles in 2D because I'm like dead against 3D graphics. I think
Sure,
3D
sure.
graphics are great. It just takes so much time to make them.
Right, right.
When you're a solo dev, you know, you could get started on a level design in 3D and you
Mhm,
could still be working on it a month later.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
ridiculous how much time it takes. Whereas if you're doing it in a tile map, you can knock up a level that looks pretty good in a couple of days.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and your 3D level designer would still be working on the first floor of that.
Right, right.
So that's the main reason I went with 2D, because I just don't have 10 staff to
Well,
give
especially
out.
doing tile maps as opposed to
Yeah.
fully fully formed map design. Like with a tile map, if you want to go and adjust it as well, you're like, okay, well, maybe I don't like the fact that there is no cover in this point. You could very easily
Mm,
add cover to that position, or oh, I want
yeah.
to have some route to get around this rock that's here. Oh, I can just
Yeah.
put in some tiles there, and now there's a route.
Mm. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about setting up new lighting for that change of graphics, because
Mm,
it's all done. Well, there's really no lighting. It's kind of just a lighting hack in
mm, mm,
2D. But in 3D, the moment you move some walls and move some trees around, you got to get the lighting person back in to redo the lighting. So
mm,
yeah,
mm,
changes are much more time consuming and
mm,
painful in 3D. Not to mention, like, there's more debugging to
mm,
do with the 3D level design, because you can quite often make spaces that you get trapped in
Right,
3D,
right.
or that you can't get through or get around, or are just awkward,
Mhm.
awkward to navigate. Whereas in 2D, that hardly ever happens. You know,
Very
all your
very recent
colliders are
example of that is in the Battlefield 6 beta. There is
yeah.
a gap in one of the rocks on a mountain, and people are
Mm.
just climbing into the rock and just sitting there with a sniper. They can shoot out, you can't shoot in.
That's the ultimate exploit
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
in a multiplayer. I am immortal.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I love that.
And like those kinds of issues, they can happen in 2D if you don't align your colliders, but it's
Yeah,
far harder to miss them than it would be in, especially if
yeah,
you've got your colliders set up correctly. There's never going to be a situation where something slips through the gaps unless there's some issue with your physics collision engine, where in
yeah.
3D you could very easily leave a gap there and not really realize that is there. Or even if it doesn't affect gameplay, you could just have a
Mm,
gap in the texture and people can just
yeah.
see through the level.
Yeah, that's right. And you've got like infinitely more problems with shaders as
Mhm,
well in 3D. Shaders are just materials that you wrap around, various 3D objects to
mhm.
give them lighting properties. And, like you're talking thousands of these little guys that you have to manage and work out. And so sometimes you might have shaders in 3D that you put on there and you think they're going to act in a certain way and they just don't. So then you're debugging shaders for the next 6 months.
Yeah, shader
So
development is just like that's a person by like unto themselves if you really want to like
it is.
hyper focus on that.
Yeah, there is developers that just do shaders, and some teams have got multiple guys just doing shaders.
Hmm.
So this is one of the many reasons why making 2D, and you'll see that when you go to AvCon, and you'll see that that 2D is the main format for the indie developer,
Hmm.
because the time commitment is so much less, and you can still make something that looks quite pretty and quite interesting, and it gets your message across, your story and your theme
Hmm.
gets delivered without getting stuck trying to make this artwork in 3D.
Hmm. Hmm.
We were just talking about the late 90s and how,
Hmm.
they looked so ugly on the PS1. And the same goes for PC games as well when they were
Hmm.
before 3D cards came along. But, the team sizes were hugely different
Hmm.
in that period of time. So you went from, in the early 90s, you had team sizes that were about 10 to 15 people for your AAA products. And by the end of the decade, those teams were getting closer to 70, 80 people
Mm.
to deliver the same AAA product. And that's just because the 3D came along and they had to all not only work it out, but they also had to do all the extra work to make the 3D look good.
Well, even that is
And it
small
still
compared to like
didn't look
modern
good.
AAA team sizes now, where you'll see 1,000 people working on a game. Oh, your audio just died for some reason. Is that on my side? I'll just.
One,
Oh, there we go.
check one.
Yep, we're good now. Can you hear me?
Input device. Check one.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. So that was probably just me playing with the cable and just accidentally pulled it out.
Okay. Okay, I thought it was like an actual problem. Right, okay.
No, it's just okay. Just leave the cable alone.
That's, yeah, usually a good bet.
Don't worry, you can just edit that out.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Um, I was
What were we
saying that
talking
like,
about?
sorry, yeah, I was saying
Yeah.
that like modern AAA teams now, you're seeing games where it's like over 1,000 people work on the title. It's in
Mm.
development for 5 years, and the game has a $500 million budget, right?
Yeah.
I,
I can't even conceive of that amount of effort and the amount of effort involved to manage those people and make sure they're working on something that's going to be in the game
mm,
instead of working on things that are never going to be in the game. But like, what 1,000 people for 5 years, that's 5,000 man years of time going
mm,
into just a video game. It's just for somebody, just for entertainment.
mm.
And the, and the budget being a few $100 million. the amount of stress just to make sure that they get enough sales to make that money back.
Mm.
It just must be so. No wonder there's like closures going on, because the budgets have probably gone a little too high for what they're trying to do. But I also think that AAA has probably spent a lot of time trying to take the safe route and deliver a game that they think is guaranteed to succeed, but people are a bit sick of the same game over and over.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Guaranteed to succeed. You're seeing, what's the latest Call of Duty game? Black Ops 6, 7? And then we have Battlefield 6, and how long's the Need for Speed series been going on, or the Forza series, or you have all of these very well-established AAA series, and they generally sell quite well. But you are seeing in recent years sort of a dip down, and people kind of... Like games like FIFA, right? Like there are people that play FIFA and they only play FIFA. FIFA is safe. There is no competition to FIFA. But in a market where there is, and you're kind of doing the same thing over and over, it's the exact same thing as the MCU, right? Where the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, even though they're actually relatively good movies, I think sales are down 50% on opening weekend. And I think it's just that people are kind of getting tired of the same thing over and over. But when you have budgets that are this big, it's really difficult to correct course and really difficult to justify trying a new idea. Whereas if you go back to the 90s, the early 2000s, these studios that are really big now, they were being run by game developers and by gamers themselves who they had an idea and they just wanted to make a game. The AAA space of the 2000s is basically the indie space or the AA space of today.
Yeah, I sort of think it's maybe a little similar to the music industry of the 90s, where CDs came along and CDs sold, they could be made for like a few cents compared to the vinyls and tapes before that. And the music industry went from, making a couple of dollars profit per unit to making like $20 profit per unit. And it literally just, multiplied by a factor of 100 in size. And then, really, it was just a case of let's churn out as many albums as we can with these artists we have on our roster. And then suddenly everyone realized that these artists were just releasing the same album over and over again. And they stopped buying them. So that, around the sort of early 2000s, there was just a huge collapse in the music industry. And I had friends that worked in it, and it was just so sad because everybody lost their jobs. But I'm sort of seeing a similar thing now because they're taking the safe road with AAA game design. They're trying to get their humongous studio budgets, to make enough money to stay open. But in doing so, they're taking very safe decisions. And in games, they're supposed to be creative. It's a creative. It's a field of art. Each game is a work of art. So when you add too much business to it, and you add too much pressure to make profits and returns to keep a studio open, I think that kills the creativity. And you certainly see that with series like Forza Horizon, which I love. But Forza Horizon 5 was basically identical to Forza Horizon 4.
And then Motorsport, which was basically the tech demo for Horizon, is dead now. So
right.
Even though I heard the last Motorsport was pretty good, but it had that issue of games before it were lacking and kind of samey. So when you have a good one that comes along, people are like, oh, that's probably just the exact same thing again. So they just don't bother going to it.
Yeah. It gets to the point where, you hear about a new title in the series has come out and you can't remember if you've played the last one in the series or not.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many of them, you've just lost track. And you kind of just you just sometimes just miss a game entirely because you assume that you've already played it, when in fact you played the prequel to it.
I know a lot of people will kind of like make fun of Rockstar for how long GTA 5 has been the GTA game that has existed. It's been 12 years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, you didn't have 12 more GTA games in between, right? You didn't have that issue where people get burnt out on GTA because they're playing a new GTA game every single year. They might be burnt out on GTA 5, but they want something new from that IP.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, and I'm glad that they've taken so many years to build a new one, and I'm glad that Oblivion's it's the new Skyrim. What's it's going to be called? I don't think it's got a
I
name.
don't think Elder Scrolls 6 has a name yet.
Yeah, I'm glad they're taking their time with it,
Mm,
because we don't need to have one at like every couple of years. We just need it to be a really, really good game. So take your time. I'm fine with that. No matter how long it takes you. You can release Starfield in the meantime if you want. Which I haven't played yet, so I won't make any judgment. I heard it wasn't as good though.
Yeah, well, that's a that's a nice way to put it. We'll say. We probably should shift back onto your game at some point, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I guess one thing I did want to ask is, why did you want to make a game like this?
Well, yeah, I mean, ever since I was a boy, you know how like you play games when you're a kid, and you think, hey, this is great, this is so cool, I could make something. And so what I did was I tried to make a game when I was a teenager, and I just did not have any skills. So I just failed utterly. I didn't know how to code. I didn't have any art skills. I had a bit of music skills. Played the synthesizer back then, but I didn't.
So how did you try to approach it? What were you trying to use at the time?
Well, I had an Amiga, and there was a program called Amos. So this is kind of like a toolkit, like a Unity type of thing, but it is it allows you to make games on your Amiga, but not high quality games, but it's having a copy of that sort of opened the doors to let's make a game together. Got a couple of friends together from school. We tried to make a game. It was kind of a gauntlet type of game, top down fighting kind of thing. Obviously well pre Diablo, and we got barely any way into it. And then I tried again in my 20s because I learned how to code C++, and it was a case of, all right, well, I've got like all these friends from training. We got like 20 people together, and we're going to make an RTS in the early 2000s. And we got barely anywhere because we didn't have any management skills. There was no income, there's no funding. It's like, running a studio is not just about ambition. There's a lot more to it. So we failed again. So that sort of stuck with me, as a personal failure for my whole life. And when I got to a point where I was able to take some time off of contracting, IT work, I decided that I was going to fix that gap. I was going to fix that personal failure, and I was going to make something and finish it. Because this is the hardest part about game development, finishing it.
Well, starting it and finishing it, those are two massive problems. Starting it was like, I have an idea, but like you're not fully committed to actually doing the work. And then finishing it where you're like, I don't know what is done. How much do I want to add into the game? Where is the stopping point? Everything in between, that's the fun part.
Absolutely. Everything about game dev is hilarious. It's so much fun. And, you could easily just get wrapped up just building new features for your game for the rest of your life. But you do have to, at some point, say that enough is enough and say, this is the feature set, and it's called feature freeze. And I learned a little bit about that when I was doing corporate projects, because if you don't feature freeze, the budget just triples. And and then you end up with a cancelled project because you can't afford it anymore. And this is probably another reason why studios have been closing lately, because of feature creep. But I decided that I would go ahead and fix that gap and finish a game. And I estimated it would take me about a year. So 2.5 years later, and I haven't finished yet. That's okay. I'm having an absolute ball. I'm not upset by that. And the more time you put into your game, the more polished it is, the more features it's got, the more levels it's got. And playtime is actually an important part of selling an indie game, because if you make a game that lasts for 30 minutes, nobody will buy it. Whereas I'm making a game that's 35 hours long, and I'm hoping that that's a selling point, because people are looking for a role-playing game that takes up a couple of weeks or months of their time, and doesn't get boring in the meantime. We're not talking fluff. We're talking about an actual storyline,
Right.
and a variety of different combats and monsters that see you through that time. I actually cut it down from 45 hours because I got a lot of feedback from people saying, 45's a long time. They would prefer a 35-hour game that was more focused,
Right.
that had a storyline that moved along at a certain pace, where there was no repetition and there was no, doing the same combat twice. And I agreed with all of those points. So it was the hardest thing ever. I cut nearly a whole act of levels out of my game and cut the story to match. And I basically said, look, I'm going to have to take all of that story and I'm going to stick it into the expansion set, make that a DLC. So if the game sells well, I'll be making an expansion for it with all of those cutting room floor levels. But so 30, I think playtime's important, and polish is very, very important, because if you release a game with lots of bugs, especially game-breaking bugs, you'll get very poor reviews and you'll get very poor sales. But if you if you focus on polish and a bit of play length, I think you're in a good place for your indie game.
I
forgot what the question was. Was that the question?
It's kind of related to it.
Yeah.
When you said you want to make sure the game's polished, I do agree that game-breaking bugs are very, very important to deal with. However, bugs unto themselves aren't necessarily entirely bad, and sometimes in certain contexts can add to the experience. I think of Skyrim having all manner of weird things that happen to dragon corpses when they die. Actually, just Skyrim in general, all Bethesda games have all manner of oddities to them that probably shouldn't be there. I also think of when the Yakuza series swapped to the Dragon Engine, where they swapped from canned animations when a character dies to ragdoll physics. And that created some interesting situations where you would kick someone and that kick would be what caused them to die, but they would retain the momentum in their ragdoll, but for some reason they deleted the weight. So they just start flying around for a couple of seconds. And it shouldn't be like that. That's obviously not intentional.
Yeah.
But it can add to the experience in certain contexts.
Oh yeah, that's just so fun. And that would make for some great streaming as well. I think, it's almost, well, role-playing games are very hard to get perfect, because there's so many script elements. So I will almost definitely ship with bugs, and I'm going to be relying on the community to let me know very quickly about any bugs that they encounter that prevent their progress or closing off quests and things like that. So I'll test as much as I can. I've got a bunch of local testers, and I'm even going to do a closed beta on Steam as well, which enables you to get a few more people to test your game. But almost certainly there'll be more bugs that we don't find, and I'm hoping that they're more of the hilarious type than the game-breaking type.
I think the most important thing for a CRPG, at least from my perspective, is as what the player intends to do should be what happens. If there is an action that, example that was in the demo I played at Avcon, climbing up on top of ledges and stuff like that, it was really awkward at the time.
Yes.
And that is obviously, like, you want someone to be able to easily climb onto these ledges. You want someone, when they click to go up there, that is where they're going to go. And things
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that, that's what ruins the experience when those things are not addressed. At least for me. Like, I'm very particular on the game feeling like I'm in control.
Yeah, yeah. I think like that sort of falls into the area of kind of UI design, like of just getting your game controls and your game UI to work perfectly in harmony. And I think that's probably the most important thing to get right. It's just your core game loop. If your core game loop is got, anything stopping it from being a fun experience, then you need to get back to work on that. And you're right, standing on rocks, and no, I haven't fixed that yet. But it was something that the design, because it's a 2D game and you've basically got rocks that are elevated into kind of a third dimension. The grid has to sort of remain at floor level in order to not have hexes covering up other hexes when they're elevated. Because that means that you get hexes that are blocked off. So you kind of need to have the mouse, float into the floor-based hex grid, and then still be able to get onto those elevated hexes. But it needs to be really obvious. So what I've come up with is when you float over that hex, you do see the hex above, but you also see like a column. Like a column of elevation, like a UI element that has some height to it, and that makes it very clear that you're going to be standing onto an elevated terrain, and without changing the way that the hex grid works. So yeah, that's something that I'm going to be working on as part of the polishing coming pretty soon. Because at the moment I'm still working on content.
Right.
I'm doing level designs. I've almost finished Act 2 of 3 acts. So I'm up to about 25 hours of gameplay at the moment, with about 10 to go. and the third act is the most epic. So it has the biggest bosses, the biggest dinosaurs, the biggest fights, the biggest magic, and just it's very dramatic. And so that's going to be fun to make. But at the end of that, there'll just be this process of testing all the levels, all the quests, and testing all that UI that we just talked about, making sure it's really smooth. But I am happy that I can take the game to a place like Avcon, and for 2 days people can play this game, and generally have an experience where they can get to the end of a 30-minute play. And they've either won or lost the fight. Hopefully they've won it. But it's playable, like this is cool. And people generally turn to me with a smile and say, that's really fun. That's a cool game. And I like that. That means that I think that it's going to do well.
Well, at the very least, you're going in the right direction, right? It's like, I know that people like this. I know people are vibing with this. It's just a matter of making sure that people know about it when it does actually go on sale.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And marketing's another big thing. Like I started marketing about maybe 9 months ago, around September, with the help of a local marketing expert called Alex. And, that was when the Steam page went up and the first trailer for the game, which you've probably seen a couple of times. And since then, I've been in probably 7 or 8 on, Steam festivals, and a couple of YouTube, pretty decent YouTube compilations. One called Best Indie Game, Summer Fest, and the other one called Turn-Based Lovers, which is a really cool channel for turn-based games. And both of those had a huge impact we measure impact by the number of wish lists for the indie game. So with Scourge being close to 4,000 wish lists now, I'm getting to the point where I feel like it'll be ready for Steam Next Fest in about...
I'm sorry, did you say 4,000?
Yeah, 4,000.
Wow.
So
Wow,
that's
that's
coming
really
along nicely.
impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Ideally, when you launch your indie game, you have to understand that your wishlist count dictates your sales.
Well, not only that, it also dictates where you are in the listing on Steam. They do some
Yes.
I think it's also how recent the wish lists are as well. They do some the value of the wish list is lesser if it happened a while ago. I don't know the exact formula for it, but they do degrade in ranking value. So you kind of want to have a big push of them somewhere close to release.
Yeah. So the secret is it relates to not just Steam Next Fest, which is just a huge multiplier of your existing wishlist count. The secret is to launch with a certain number of wish lists. It doesn't matter the velocity of your wish. It doesn't matter how many you made in the last week or month.
I thought it did value. Maybe I'm mistaken on that.
There's a lot of conjecture about this.
Okay, fair enough.
But what I believe is to be the correct is that it's simply your wish list count. So if you've got somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 wish lists, you'll land onto the coming soon popular listing on Steam, and you can see it. So there's no guesswork there. You can see when you land on that page, and you probably appear at the bottom of it because some of the games on there have got. But once you're on the bottom of it, when you launch your game after that, you will get on the front page of Steam onto the coming soon widget. And if you're on the front page of Steam with your game's key art, you'll get 1,000 wish lists per day, which is huge until you disappear off of that widget. And once your game launches, you're off the you're off that widget. So what I'm hoping to do is get to 10,000 wish lists before. Not before. Get to 10,000 by the end of that. By the end of that widget at launch, and that would be a really good result for this solo dev game. It would certainly I think it would make for enough sales to justify working on a second one or an expansion. With all the ideas that I've got.
Well, I'll leave all that stuff linked down below for anyone who wants to go check the game out. I've had the trailer playing a number of times throughout this, and I just played the clip that was shown in the Turn-Based Lovers video. So yeah, go check if you like CRPGs, absolutely go check it out. It was UI wise, I said there's some polish there that still needs to be done, but the core game, I do really like what is there. It's just obviously the rest of the content you want to get done, and then ensuring that everything feels good and feels polished. I think one of the other areas that I certainly struggled with was sort of, maybe it's because of where the game sort of dumped me into, because it wasn't the start of the game, but understanding what the abilities I had were. But I would imagine that's probably, as you develop them, probably makes more sense, when you actually start from the start.
If you start from the start, you've got a very limited number of spells and skills that you get access to, and that enables you to focus on the basics. So by the time you that demo at AvCon was probably 10 hours into the game.
Right.
By that time, you would be an absolute expert in all of your skills and spells, and you would know exactly what everything does. But you can right-click any of it, and you can get a nice info panel for any of those things just to find out what they do. But yeah, you're right. Understanding, the impact of individual abilities is key, and that's why I was, I need to, when people play a demo, I need to be there telling them, giving them advice. Basically, try this. Try slamming your opponent. Try casting an armor spell. It makes a big difference. If you don't do those things, you'll probably end up getting trounced by the enemy. So You're right. There's a learning curve, but there typically is with this type of game, and
Hmm.
so there's a tutorial at the start where it just runs you through how everything works, and then as you train your characters, you'll learn a lot more because you'll be analyzing each of your skills and spells first.
Have
Yeah.
you done playtesting with the tutorial? Are you sure it's like providing enough information with that?
Not yet, no.
No, okay. Because
That'll be part of that polish, yeah, for sure.
yeah, because that can be a big thing as well, where you'll make the tutorial and you think it's good, but you're also the
Mm.
person who spent the past 2.5
Hmm.
years looking at the game and understand how everything works. So you
Yeah,
might have sort of a skewed understanding of the sort of entry point that someone new to this game, especially someone new to CRPGs, might have looking at this
yeah,
game.
yeah, absolutely. I'll spend a lot of time working on that with my testers
Mhm.
because that'll be the first thing we work on is that tutorial part. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I do actually improve the gameplay even now, even this late in the development. I'm still finding ways to improve it.
Mhm.
So a really good example is that facing. You know how facing is important in this
Mm.
game, where the front of you is where you can attack, the back of you is where you can get attacked and not be able to defend it.
Mhm.
So facing the correct way is super important. Kind of like a game of XCOM or a game of BattleTech.
Mhm.
Where facing is a critical part of it. And I really, really wanted that in my game, even though it's not typically a part of a CRPG.
Right.
But I came up with just last week by playing another game, Dungeon of Nahulbeck, which you may have heard of. Don't know. But basically, when you move, you immediately set your facing with a second click. And I thought that
Mm.
is cool because I'd thought about this before but decided against it. But having used it in a game, it's actually better
Mhm.
because you don't get the opportunity to just not understand facing in the game. It's
Right.
always part of the movement. So you move and then you face, you move and then you face.
Mhm.
And I didn't want the extra clicks, but it's actually worse if the player doesn't get familiar with facing
Mhm.
and using it whenever they move,
Mhm.
because they're always going to get flanked and lose.
Yeah, that was one of the things I immediately. It just didn't really click with me. Like
Mm,
I haven't played games like XCOM, so I didn't really
yep,
get the idea that you had to face people. I sort of
yep,
assumed that, like a lot of games where the enemy would attack you and then you just suddenly start looking at them, or you cast a spell and then you look at them. And it's like that. The idea of facing is sort of a more automatic movement, but having that be
yep,
a core part of your turn, you basically have to learn that there is like you may not understand initially a lot of the value in doing so. I would hope
mm,
that's like part of the tutorial, but it
mm.
it's something where you can't avoid because it's something that you have to do.
Yeah, yeah. This is why I thought it was a good thing to add, and it's not difficult for me to code this in.
Mm.
Essentially, the moment your movement ends, you get a UI that shows the facing immediately,
Mm.
and you can just click something else and cancel it. No problem. You don't have to do that second click on the map if you
Mm.
just want to face where you're already facing. But it's quite obvious in that system that you got to face immediately. Is your next action will be facing,
Mm.
and that just rams it home that facing is a critical part of the tactics of the
Mm.
combat.
Mm. Mm.
And if you can get facing right, that's you're halfway there. Because it keeps your flank and your rear from being exposed to rear attacks, which
Mm.
obviously is the worst.
Mm. Mm.
So that was just something that came along like last week. So we're 2.5 years into development, and still working. It's still working on the UI and the design. So
Mm. Yeah, especially being a solo dev,
mm,
there's only so many things that you can do at once, right? And
yeah,
you might be focused on working on the content, and when you're doing so, you're like, oh, well, here's this other area that's missing something, but you're the only one there, right? Like,
I know. Yeah,
So
And it's like, yeah, go on.
are you doing everything? Did you buy assets for
Mhm.
music and sound, or is I assume
Yeah,
sound you probably bought stuff
yeah.
for.
Assets have been bought, absolutely. And, when it comes to sound, obviously sound effects, it'd be crazy not to buy
Yeah,
the
that's a
sound
really
effects
hard one.
because making your own sound effects is just not necessary. Music, I had the choice of doing music myself with my
Mhm.
synthesizer, but decided that I wanted to have a huge scope of music. So there's a mix of orchestral and sort of classic synthwave music,
Mm.
synthesizer type music, but also, very, very old school synthesizer music, like you might find in an 80s movie,
Mm. Mm.
fantasy movie. Your Tangerine Dream kind of, or your Vangelis.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So there's a mix of those kind of musics, and you can purchase that kind of music for your game at a very affordable price. So I went and did that.
Mhm.
When it comes to tile sets, yes, they're all purchased, and they all come from two artists that I found on itch.io. Um, when it comes to monster and human models,
Mhm.
they're all purchased as well.
Mhm.
And but I've done all the rendering to get all those into 2D, which has
Mhm.
been quite a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. You know, I have seen some, direct 2D to 3D kind of instant translation kind of layers,
Mhm.
but I'm not convinced it looks good
Mm.
as of yet. I think it will, but there at the moment, I thought that tr- pre-rendering the 2D looked better.
Right. Right.
So that's what I did for this game. And apart from that, you might think, well, that's all the game, but no. I did all the coding, I did all the design, and I did all the putting it all together, which is another thing. In Unity, you have to spend quite a lot of time just making, just making records and making prefabs, and that all takes a lot of time. And obviously making the level. It's just the level design process. So that was all me too. So yeah, no contractors, just one dev and some purchased assets.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, even with that being the case, like it one of the concerns you sometimes have with games that have a lot of purchase assets is there's not really a coherent art style, and I don't that doesn't feel like the case here. It feels like everything kind of just works together.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that because that's been one of my concerns. Getting the 3D models to render in such a way that they look like they belong against the tile sets, it's been a real challenge.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I talked to you about it, but it's not just resolution
Mm.
because the resolution of the tile set is 32 pixels.
Mm.
So if you make all of your models about 64 pixels high, then
Mm.
they look about 2 tiles high, and it's about right for a human. Um, and your monsters can be, larger, obviously.
Sure.
But there's more to it than that because your color palette is really important. It needs to be a strict a low amount of colors. We're talking generally 32 or 64 colors,
Mm.
and the contrast needs to be correct as well.
Mm.
So if your blacks aren't black enough versus the tile set, it looks weird. I've still got a
Mm.
bit of work to do on that, but I think the colors are looking good. When you reduce colors, you can also do some cool things with dithering. Do you know
Mm.
what dithering is? So yeah, it's a way of getting rid of all that shading that looks really more modern,
Mhm.
and it turns into a speckle pattern,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it looks very retro and very cool. So there's dithering in there.
Mhm.
And animation frame rate is important as well. So most
Mm.
of the games back then were 10 to 12 frames a second, not 30 frames a second. So I've done a lot of reduction of
Mhm.
frame counts. Um, and particle effects as well. You need to get particle. I've built a lot of particle effects, and they are obviously just they're very pixelated, and they're
Mhm.
built to look like they belong on the tile map. And so once you put all those things together, I think that it's art direction
Mhm.
essentially.
Mhm.
You get something that looks like it all belongs together. Um, and then the still art as well. So the still art is just appears in various dialogue panels and things, and they're just generally 200 to 400 pixels wide, to fit the same kind of resolution, and generally they're 256 colors, because if you reduce those images down to 32 colors, they look bloody awful. So,
Right.
so it's a different kind of, it's more of a DOS PC look, VGA, which still looks like it fits, but it doesn't look terrible.
Right.
So I'm glad that you think it looks like it all fits together, because that's been one of the major focuses for the art.
I think the one thing that doesn't is the UI. The UI, it like the font feels too modern.
Right.
The lack of borders around like the images, it just like everything else. I think it stands out so much because of how much everything else kind of works together.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely do some borders on the panels and the images. What I was thinking, the reason why the dialogue text is high resolution is because when you pixelate text, it becomes very hard to read.
Yeah.
So I've gone with high definition text. Some of the text is pixelated, some of the larger text and the UI text and stuff. Other bits of text are high resolution, and that just because you don't want to give your readers a headache.
Sure.
But yeah, like there's probably still some work on the text to make it all very fitting in with the art assets. And this is a known thing, so there's definitely polish to be done in the UI.
Yeah, because I think the combat UI does work. It's just like the text and the menus; those are like kind of what stand out to me at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like you want to be a tester, so I'll sign you up. Unless you're too busy, of course, Brady.
We'll see. I don't know. I have time sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that we hadn't really touched on is that all of the dice rolls that happen, those are being indicated on the screen as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that idea came from a game called Solasta, Crown of the Magister. I think it was maybe one of the first modern games that did that idea. And Baldur's Gate 3 just went and took that idea. And what I think it does is it brings the feeling of playing a tabletop game into the realm of the computer role playing game. I think it's cool, because I think I've always been searching for a computer game experience, role playing game experience that matches or comes close to a tabletop game of D&D or something. And the dice is definitely part of that. It's the sound of the dice. And it's the look of the dice and the numbers that come up on the dice. It's not just a random element, like the random element is part of every role-playing game. In fact, it's part of every video game. But seeing the numbers come up on the dice is just a really cool thing. And just knowing that it's a dice that's deciding your fate is a cool thing as well. And something as simple as rolling a skill check. You're praying for those dice to come up under your skill number. So that's part of the tabletop experience. I think it captures it. I'm really glad that idea came along. I wish I'd thought of it. But it definitely came from another game.
Right, when you don't have anything there to indicate what's happening, it can feel like, oh, I've just missed for no reason. But having the dice there and knowing what your roll looks like, even though it still feels bad to miss an attack, you at least understand why the attack missed.
Yeah. And it's like, I suppose like a lot of modern role-playing games they want to, give that constant sense of power by letting you hit every single time. Whereas a tabletop game doesn't really do that. It wants you to feel like you swung and you got a miss, or you swung and they blocked it. Because that's that's part of the kind of to and fro of the battlefield. So, you know, this is why in my game, you know, you can modify your attack numbers with by increasing their defenses, or vice versa, and that enables you to constantly hit, but you're not always going to constantly get through their defenses. It's kind of a numbers game. You have to keep striking until you get that hit. But when you do get that hit, it will do pretty significant damage. So you're kind of working the odds. And you're kind of, you know, getting all of your team members in position to get their strikes on. So yeah, tabletop role-playing does that, whereas I think a lot of modern RPGs have got a much more safer feel about them. Like you always hit, basically.
Yeah, I think the distinction there is real-time combat versus turn-based, where there have been real-time games in the past, like Morrowind, for example. Morrowind still felt like a 2D game, but it was in 3D. So you would do swings, and you could still miss a swing. And in 3D, that doesn't feel right. Just real-time in general doesn't feel right, because you see the sword connect. You know that sword hit. So it takes you out of that experience. But when you're in turn-based, you already sort of know that you're in a game, right? Like combat doesn't work like this. You don't take turns swinging at each other, so you can have a bit more leeway to do things like, oh, this attack missed, or oh, you know, you can heal the entire party without anybody getting in the way of it. Like, it being turn-based already, you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit about it, because it just doesn't really make sense.
I think you're right. I think if when it's in 3D, you can definitely see the blow connect or not. You know, if you've got your mouse in the right spot, and therefore having that swing be a miss, like your Morrowind, is going to, you know, really be a bizarre thing to occur in your brain. Kind of like, you know, the VR sensation. I just moved forward with my feet, but I can't see my feet.
Right.
You know, and I can't feel my body moving. What's causing nausea? That sort of reminds me of that. But I think, you know, in a turn-based game, you can have misses because they all look like hits. You know, it's just a sprite attacking another sprite.
If you want to have it actually miss, you can just move the sprite out of the way when the attack happens.
Yeah, well, that's part of a dodge. You know, you'll see them dodge or block with their shield or parry with their weapon. But if you physically miss, it just looks like a hit, because, you know, the sprite has got the same attack animation with miss or hit. Yeah, I mean, you could move them. You could have them attack to the wrong hex, you know, like just a 45-degree angle, and just that would be kind of funny, because who would miss that badly? But you know, the fact that it comes up on the screen with miss is kind of clear enough for me. And that was something that came out of the last AvCon a year ago, was that somebody said, had, you know, played the demo, which was a little bit different to the one you played. And they said, look, I don't know when I'm missing or hitting or a damage. It's all down there in the log on the side. I want to see it where I just clicked. I was like, geez, why didn't I think of that? It's just so obvious.
People like damage numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to see the damage number. You need to see the miss. You need to see the critical miss, everything, because it's really important information. And if you're forced to read that little log down in the corner, you're going to get a headache. So yeah, I mean, play testing from community is super important as much as testers. Yeah.
So, what do you consider to be sort of the, I guess, main guiding principle of the game? The thing that sort of drives you forward, the thing that you really want to be the focus of the game?
Oh, it's definitely dinosaurs. You know, like, I know that's not. It's not really. You can't say that's a story. You know, dinosaurs is not a story. The story revolves around an invasion based. You know, that actually, I don't want to give away too many spoilers.
Understandable.
But basically, the dinosaurs are definitely a big part of this invasion. I'll say that. But the driving theme of the game, and the thing I think that has made the community online on Steam respond to the trailer and such, is the fact that it's a role-playing game that has dinosaurs in it. As far as I know, that's never been done. Like there's a game called Ultima Savage or something, of Savage World or something, that had dinosaurs, but it also had guns. So it's kind of a Lands Before Time kind of idea. And you've had plenty of Monster Hunter games that have featured dinosaurs. Your Turok and Monster Hunter and all of those have got dinosaurs in them. But those are not role-playing games. And, so why hasn't there been a prehistoric role-playing game with cavemen and dinosaurs in
I'm sure
it?
there's someone that's going to list some random obscure game that no one's ever heard of. But it's certainly not a popular.
I would love to hear it.
It's not a popular trope, right? Like you'll get your XCOM style games where it's like, hey, you're gonna fight aliens, and you get like high fantasy where it's fighting dragons and goblins and stuff like that.
Yeah, I keep hearing as well that.
Oh, of course, Fallout style games.
Exactly. You keep hearing that if you make your fantasy role playing game non-standard, like if you make it non-Tolkien style, with take out the orcs and the elves and everything, then it's going to fail, because that's what people want when they play fantasy. They expect basically Tolkien. I don't believe that at all. I think that people want all sorts of things with their role-playing games. And one example was when Pillars of Eternity 2 came out. And people said that, well, the reason that game failed is because it went all piratey and, with Age of Sail kind of technology, with muskets and all that. And they should have just stuck with the fantasy. But I think there was probably more problems with Pillars of Eternity 2 that resulted in it selling not as well as the first one. I wouldn't say it failed. I think it did fine. But I actually think that players, RPG players out there are probably quite happy to play something that's not Tolkien, because they've played that game 100 times.
I think it's certainly, it is a good baseline to build off of, because you can get away without explaining a lot of things, right? Like you don't need to explain what elves are and like how general magic systems work and stuff. Like you can just sort of, or like you base something on a D&D style system, right? Like you can just like hand wave that away. Like, what this is. You've heard of dwarves and all of these things, and that works, right? Like there's tons of amazing games that are like that. But at the same time, it's sort of the same problem you have with a lot of alien fiction, where a lot of it is like, hey, we're going to base it on little grey men, right? Like you're dealing with something that doesn't exist. You can be a bit more... you can explore it a little bit more than this.
You're probably right. I mean, like science fiction probably suffers from the same, repeating tropes, with everybody trying to do either the story of the Terminator or the story of Alien.
Well, everything has a warp drive, right? Like, come with some other travel mechanism.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about doing a science fiction game, but I literally couldn't come up with an idea that hadn't been made into a video game.
Right.
You've got your punk games, plenty of those. You've got your BattleTech games. You've got your Star Wars types games, and you've got your Star Trek type games. And oh god, is it possible to think of something new in the science fiction world? It probably is.
Sure, yeah.
Dune's pretty original, but and that's been obviously just been made into a really good game, which I haven't played yet. I gave up on that idea of doing sci-fi, and maybe I'll come back to it, but it would have to be something different, and different is hard in science fiction. But I really feel like different in fantasy is underdone. There's just very few examples of non-Tolkien style fantasy. They call it high fantasy, and it's just orcs, and it's huge spells, and it's wizards with hats and that kind of thing. It's big spire castles, and that's high fantasy, and yeah, it's almost like game developers don't know there's other types of fantasy that you can do.
Right. Well, again, it's going back to the thing from earlier. It's safe, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the reason why we're seeing a lot of these Souls-like games that are coming out, because people
Oh, so
like
many.
I enjoy my Souls-like games, but at the same
Mm.
time, can we have, can we have some
Hmm.
maybe things, if you want to take from things that already exist, like a DMC style game or
Mm.
PS2 God of War, or like
Hmm.
there are other ways that we can do this,
Yeah.
but
I
right
feel the same
now it's
about
like the safe thing to do. Yeah.
yeah. I feel the same about Metroidvanias. I quite
Uh-huh.
like that type
Uh-huh.
of game. I mean, with the dash and the bouncing off the walls, it's all pretty cool. I played Castlevania on the Super Nintendo,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's cool. And I'm yet to play the Symphony, apparently the best one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fun type of game. But why on earth are there so many indie games that do this type of genre?
Hollow Knight.
And
That's
yeah,
why. Because
it's
Hollow Knight did
probably Hollow
so
Knight.
well.
Yeah, yeah, and they all want to do as well as that.
Mm-hmm.
But we might be waiting for Silksong before that happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For another game, another Metroidvania does as well as that. But it's obviously better than the kind of classic platformer, which is I don't think sells very well anymore because everyone is just very, very bored of it. That
Mm.
jumping on the heads of your monster. Um, and but I think you know if I was an indie game developer
If you
thinking of
were.
what, yeah, I mean, if I was
If
if
I
I
was an
wasn't
indie game
already
developer.
I was not yet building a game and wondering what game to make,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go with something like a simulator. Those are
Mm.
doing really well at the moment. I think there's still space for a lot of new ideas there. Um, like really weird, just like supermarket simulator and
Mm-hmm.
hard space breakdown or whatever it's called. These are interesting ideas. They
Mm-hmm.
should make more of those.
I think there's also a very clear distinction between them when it's someone who just wants to make a simulator and someone who has like
Mm,
a real love for what they're doing. Like I've seen
yeah.
some of these like a good example, Mechanic Simulator.
Mm.
Whoever made that game put a lot of just too much detail into some areas. And there's
They're
a lot
probably a
of
real mechanic.
probably, yeah. And if you're going to do something where it's like a serious simulator, you kind of need to put that level of detail in, or you can
You
go the
do.
whole
You
other
do.
direction and make
Mm.
it like a surgeon simulator where it's
Where it's funny.
intentionally, yeah, it's supposed to be super
Mm.
arcadey and weird, and
Yeah.
it's not even remotely realistic, but it's still a fun core concept there.
Yeah. Um, I think that, even the people that are making versions of
Sorry,
this
you cut out
simulator,
there when you said that.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Even the people that are making kind of hilarious versions of simulators,
Mm.
like Theme Hospital or something, they probably are also experts in the field.
Sure, sure.
There's
Like you got to
probably
be an
like
expert in it to
medical
make a parody of
professionals.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, your jokes aren't going to land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think there's space for those type of games, for more of those. I don't think they're difficult to make. As difficult to make as, say, a shooter
Mm.
is very difficult to make. People expect a certain level of incredible quality on their shooter games, play
Mm-hmm.
games. I think people have told me that I'm crazy for making a role playing game, and that to a certain extent that is true, because you could definitely make just about any other type of game faster.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that there's also more of a kind of demand for or hunger for this type of product,
Mm-hmm.
versus say a platformer or a
Right.
Metroidvania, where there's quite a lot of saturation in those genres it's probably going to work against you when you get to marketing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you don't want to make a game and then have no one play it.
Sure. And if you just want to like spit out games, the easiest way to do it is some simple core mechanic, very repeatable mobile game. Like
Yeah.
that, you can throw something together in 2 or 3 months. It's a really good game
Mm,
and get
yeah.
something out there. But
Yeah.
I think also just doing something you love, something that you
Mm,
think you can add some value to, rather than just, you know, getting something released.
mm,
Like, I look, if you're not hurting for bills at this very moment and you need this game to succeed right very now, I
mm.
get it, right? Like, you want to do something that's going to take you some time, and 2.5 years that's a long time. Yeah, maybe in the grand scheme
Yeah.
of game development for a lot of titles isn't crazy
Mm,
long, but it's still
mm.
a really long part of your life.
Yeah. Um I think that, like if you were to make a short game, there's two good reasons to do it. One would be as a resume for your portfolio. If you want to get a
Mm,
job in the industry, that's absolutely the best way is to make a short game and
mm,
say,
mm,
look,
mm.
I built something and shipped it because they want to see that.
Right.
And I think the other really good reason is training. If you want to train yourself how to code, how to make games, and just be better,
Mm, mm, mm.
making a short game is the best way to do it. Don't try to make a role playing game or it takes a long time because the quicker that you can build it, the quicker you can iterate on your training and
Mm,
and make another one, and that's going to make you really good at what you do.
mm.
But in terms of a viable business model, I don't know if making short games is better than making long games. It maybe depends on your cash flow of your studio,
Sure,
as you
sure.
just said. Yeah.
Well, and then you make, a Flappy Bird, and then you're set for life.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought of another reason why you'd want to make short games
Mm,
or short development cycles is because it's a bit of a hit-driven industry.
mm,
Because some games sell unreasonable numbers of units, and other games sell a very unreasonable low amount of units, and
mm,
sometimes it doesn't make any sense as to why the one sold better than the other.
mm,
And that's just kind of like the fickle nature of the gamer industry or the gamer audience
mm, mm,
that likes some things and hates other things at any given moment in time. So the more games you make, the more chance you're going to have a hit.
mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think back
you'll have
on.
something that
Oh,
go on.
I was gonna say, I think
Something
back
that
on.
yeah.
You go finish what you're
Yeah,
saying.
it's something that trends, is what I was going to say. Something that's trending. Go on.
Yeah, yeah. I think back on successes like Vampire Survivors, for example,
Yeah,
where if that game was any more expensive, it would not have sold like it did. But
yeah.
it was very cheap, it was very simple, it was very
Hmm.
addicting, and it
Hmm.
was sort of at a time where there was kind of like a drought in the market and people wanted something different, and that
Mm.
it came along, it was a couple dollars,
Hmm.
and it spawned a whole genre off of it.
Yeah. Now, there's sometimes like things do so incredibly well that it just blows the mind. Like just the other day, I played Loop Hero. Have you ever played that?
I know the name.
Yeah, it's a roguelike where you just kind of go around like you go around on a path. It's kind of like a board game in that
Mm,
respect. You've got a few cards that you can play to build things, but mostly you're just fighting monsters as you go round and round and round
mm,
in
mm,
these circles. And it's so incredibly addictive. I could not believe it. No wonder it sold millions of copies.
mm-hmm.
And it looks like it was made by, a tiny team. I don't know how many.
They did have Devolver Digital as a publisher, so they did
Yeah, that
have that
helps.
funding there as well. Yeah, definitely.
But you don't get onto Devolver Digital as your publisher without having a pretty decent idea,
Yeah, for sure, for
unless
sure.
you're already with them from a previous game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But like, look, even with funding, right? Like, if you have a bad idea that doesn't work, it's still a bad idea that doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
no amount of funding is gonna, as you can see from the AAA space, no amount of funding
mm,
is gonna save a bad idea.
yeah, absolutely. And no amount of social media is going to save it. No
Mm,
amount of YouTube exposure is going to save that bad idea.
mm-hmm,
And sometimes, like it would be best to just, like take your baby, your beautiful game that you thought was the best thing in the world, and just say bye bye.
mm-hmm.
That sounds really sad, but but if if nobody likes it, what is the
Mm,
point?
right.
You could make it for yourself, but that's probably a waste of time. Um,
Well,
yeah, you probably
hopefully,
do.
if you're passionate about something, there's also other
Mm,
like I think. as long as you're not some like psycho that you cannot relate to any other people, usually you having interest in something, other people are going to have those interests. And if you're
Yeah.
genuinely creating a piece of art that you believe in, even if there's a small market there, and some ideas just have a small market because it's such a niche idea, but my hope is that when there are games that people are super passionate about and super believe in the idea, my hope is over time people discover it. Now, there are so many games out there which nobody finds out about. You're like, oh, what is this game? It has 30 reviews on Steam. It came out 7 years ago. You play it, like, why does nobody know about this? How did this slip under anyone's radar?
Yeah, you do definitely find games like that, and it's it's kind of sad because maybe they were under marketed, like maybe they didn't have the kind of marketing exposure they needed before launch. Some indies don't actually understand that marketing needs to be done, and that it is so sad to me that they might spend a year or two building it and then release it without the marketing because they're basically just given their product to the world, but nobody will see it because nobody knew it existed. And that is really, really sad. But, like other times you see games that were marketed well, that came from strong publishers, have beautiful art and really good design, and they just absolutely do what they wanted to do, and still nobody bought it or played it. And I just, that's even worse. Imagine the poor devs who worked on that. And they're like, I don't understand, but the game sold like 8 copies. And it should have sold 80,000.
Right.
It actually happens all the time.
Well, and, there are so many games that come out on Steam every single day that you can't play every game.
It's true. Like something like 20,000, 15,000 or something per year now coming out. But you don't need to play all of those because most of them are, well, they're really first-time projects from amateur developers, you know. So they're basically trying it out. They're trying out Steam, and they've got obviously less than 1,000 unit sales, and some of them have got less than 100. A lot of them have got less than 100 unit sales, and so when people say there's 15,000 games coming out per year on Steam, they're including all of those titles, and if you take all of those ones out, it's closer to 3,000 or 4,000.
At the same time, though, you still need to sort through that, and you still need to appear like you need to make yourself stand out with it. Like even if a lot of the games aren't games people are going to buy, you need to find some way to not be one of those games. You need to find some way to be a game that people are going to sort of they know is coming out. They want to buy, and obviously like the art on the Steam page. That's like sure that's going to help to some extent, but knowing that a game exists, and I think you do have these, and a lot of other devs do these now, just putting out devlogs, right? Like using platforms like YouTube, showing people that a game is actually being made here.
I would say the devlogs haven't been the best part of the marketing. Like there hasn't been a big response on my YouTube channel. I'd say the biggest impact for marketing for Scourge of the Reptiles has been just getting involved in the Steam festivals. You just apply to them. Yeah. Sometimes you get turned away. Like I didn't get into 6-1 Indie. And sometimes you get let in and it just doesn't make much of an impact. It's just a small Steam sale. Other times it's, like with Turn-Based Lovers, for example, there was 400 game developers or games in that festival, and the response was absolutely enormous because they combined it with front page of Steam, so they got onto the front page, and they combined it with YouTube content creators at the same time, and it was a real event.
Right.
And so if you can get into one of those, it just has way more impact than any devlog that you care to make on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah, no, of course, but like all of these bits of like none of this is sort of hurting the game, right? It's putting all of these things out there, showing people the game exists, getting the name out there. Just simple thing that if I search for the game, I can find the game on a search engine. Like
Yeah.
just that unto itself already helps so much. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've had
The,
I've
the,
I've had some people on where their names just are not. They've not really finalized the name yet. They've not really. You can't really find it anywhere. Maybe they don't have the Steam page up yet. So even if they find out about the game, like where do I even go to find more about the game? Right? Like just getting these basic things up.
Yeah.
Even that is a good start to go with.
Oh yeah, you've got to start with the Steam page, and then just start hitting up those Steam festivals and Steam sales and whatever you can get onto. Try getting onto various YouTube channels with their compilations they make and their events that they do, and that's really kind of the core of the indie game marketing thing. Socials, I haven't had a very good experience with socials. You know, like I'll make posts, I get a few likes, but I've got virtually no traffic into my Steam page from my socials. So that might change if I release a game and then start working on a second one, because apparently socials do quite well if you're a known studio. But yeah, so I wouldn't recommend spending too much of your time making content for social media. When you're a game dev,
what really works there is like the funny TikTok viral videos. You see something weird happen. Like
yeah.
I don't know if you probably saw this because it went everywhere. There was a game where you could parry a nuke, and that video just like went around the entire internet.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can get trending on any of the socials, you'll probably notice an impact. But yeah, you might be working pretty hard to get to the point where you get noticed in that field where everybody's trying that. But definitely get your Steam page up, and also I didn't even know, but that until quite recently that you can make updates on your Steam page, and it gets posted out to your followers. And so if you got not your wish listers, but your followers, which is a subset of your wish listers, and that's actually a really good way to do your devlog, because people are interested in how your game is coming along because they want to buy it.
I don't think I've ever pressed the follow button on a Steam page before. I did not know what that did.
Yeah, well, that's what it does. You get notified about updates.
Okay, cool.
It's useful. Yeah, it's useful if you want to know when a game is coming out.
Huh.
And
no, I've just never even seen any devs even talk about follows as a thing. I don't know if most other people even know about that.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, like most games, you're probably right. I'd say that 90% of gamers probably don't know the follow button is there, just like you. But those that do are interested in your development, and they want to hear your devlog. That's what I've been doing on there. And a second trailer. I did a second trailer. I might do a third one at launch, and obviously I'll do a demo, a playable demo. Will be coming for Steam Next Fest, which probably I'm aiming for the February Next Fest, which is next year. And you have to have a playable demo,
right?
So that'll just be like a 30-minute playtime, which is approximately one battle, and hopefully, people you can actually review demos now. So hopefully, some people drop some nice reviews for that, which should help the progress.
Where would you want the demo to take place?
That's a good question. I don't even know yet, but
because you can't be over their shoulders like a con, so you can't really chuck them into the middle of the game.
I think you're right. I think it might have to be in the starting village of the game, because we kind of need the players to be slowly exposed to some of the gameplay elements. In which case the fight that's in the initial part of the game is with pterodactyls, which is it's not such a bad start because it's dinosaurs, and that's the theme. And the village looks quite nice, so it might make a good demo. But I'm going to discuss with some people about this one, because there might be other parts of the early part of the game that would make a better demo. Right. So we'll see.
Well, hopefully,
for example, you get your first dinosaur mount, as in one that you can ride on. in the second level of the game. So that might be a good place to have the demo. But that does introduce extra complexity, which might not be appreciated by a first-time player. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I do think making sure people understand what they are playing, because if you just chuck them into it, then I could see people immediately bouncing off when it's like, I don't know what any of these abilities do. Why are there like 12 buttons to press? What do I, like, without giving anyone sort of guidance, I don't see that initially going well for them.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the kind of game where you need the tutorial even in the demo. Absolutely. Yeah. Which is going to be annoying because the tutorial takes a fair while, and you kind of want a demo to go for less than 30 minutes.
Sure.
So, yeah, I suppose it could go for longer. We'll see.
Well, before you get to that point, sorry?
Yeah. Oh, I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, we can take a short break.
Take a quick break. 2 seconds, won't be long. Hello again.
Welcome back. I kept the recording going, so just cut that.
That's fine.
Out.
Yeah, cool, Tar.
So,
what was the question? I forgot.
I was going to go into a new question. So you're all good. So you've talked about sort of the length of the game, but when it comes to like player abilities, what sort of scope are you looking for there? Like, what sort of range of things are characters going to be able to do?
Yeah, so you've got your main kind of warrior abilities. Things like you can do disarms, you can do sweeps. Sweep the feet that knocks a unit over. You can do slams, which knocks an opponent over after a move. What else? You can do intimidation, and which prevents units from coming at you. And you can do a taunt, which makes units come towards you. You can do thrown weapon attacks, and obviously bows and missile attacks, and reloading of those. What else is there? You can modify.
There was the magic system.
Yes.
And there was like tiers of the magic, which I didn't really understand as I was playing the game.
Yeah, so when you train in spells, they've got prerequisites, so you kind of learn them in a tree. So you start out with your basic spells, and you can branch out to your more powerful spells. When you cast a spell, you've got different types. There's 200 odd different spells that have each got their own functionality. And when you cast one, typically you'll be targeting either an area, or you'll be targeting an enemy, or you'll be targeting yourself. Yourself might be, or one of your allies. yourself you might be casting a buff or a heal type of spell. If you're targeting an enemy, you might be, doing a blast type attack, or you might be doing a missile attack, or you might be doing a spell that attacks the mind or body, like an influencing kind of spell. And an area is something that, is something that affects multiple hexes on the map. So when you select the spell, the next thing you have to select is the level of the spell. So the power level of the spell, sometimes, it might be 1 through 4, so 4 being the highest power level. And in the example of, say, a healing spell, the power level 1 heals 1 hit point of damage, and the power level 4 heals 4 hit points of damage. So you've just got this ability to dictate how much you want to heal versus how much stamina you want to use up. And other times the power level will do radically different things, like the power level 1 of a create animal spell makes a small animal. Power level 4 makes a mammoth. So there's a big range of different animals that you cast onto the battlefield. So power level is set, and sometimes there's another selection where you might need to target the ground or flying units, because they can be on the same hex, basically. So if you've got a target, if you've got flying targets on the map, sometimes you have to select which of those two you're going to go for. And then you target, so you select the hex that you're firing the spell at. And typically you want to be at a fairly short range that'll reduce your penalties. And, you'll want to have nothing in between. There'll be penalties for missile attacks. If you're firing through a unit, or you're firing through a bush, there's a penalty to hit. And there's a percentage chance that you'll succeed in your spell. And the more spells you have active, the lower the chance that you can cast more spells. So there's a bunch of different factors there. So yeah, it's casting a spell is there's quite a lot to it, and there's so many spells that you'll probably be your party will probably contain multiple spellcasters. You might have a cleric for healing. You might have a mage that has got a variety of spells across the elemental spell colleges. Or you might have another mage who's got a variety of spells in necromancy or, gait and movement and these kind of colleges. So it's up to you how many mages you want to have. Sometimes it's worth having a druid in the party because they have this ability to summon animals they can ride on, and they can also shapeshift into animals. So that's a pretty cool power to have. There's also bards, and bards have special powers to do with their instruments, where they can control people and charm people with their music. And they've also got a few spells to cast as well. And what else have we got? There's you've got your scouts and thieves, and they're kind of there's 2 different ways you can build those, but basically they're experts with things like survival and stealth and picking locks, finding traps. And finding traps is absolutely critical skill to have in this game, because there's so many traps everywhere. And it's so annoying when you walk into them. And you can, if for example you find a snake trap, which is basically a snake hiding in the grass, you get the option to disarm that trap by killing the snake. And then if you do kill the snake, you can, with the poison skill, you can milk the poison out of it and put that onto an arrow, make it into a poison arrow. So that's cool. And there's also poisonous scorpions and things like that you can get poisons from.
All right.
Yeah, so those are some of the different kind of classes. It sort of falls into the, warrior, cleric, mage, thief kind of thing. But I'm actually not really explaining how everything is fully modifiable. So there's no classes.
Right.
When you go to a trainer, the trainer will teach you whatever you need to learn from them. But you can go to another trainer and well. it all just comes down to how many points you've got.
Mhm.
So there's an infinite variety of character builds. So any ability and any skill and any spell, given the right prerequisites, can be learnt by any character. And so that means that you might end up with a mage warrior, or you might end up with a cleric mage, or a thief mage. And some of those combos are really cool. Like a thief mage, for example, there's some of the spells can make you a really good thief. You know, so you don't select the classes when you really just your main character is the one you start with. So you design them from scratch completely, and all the other companion characters that you add to your group, they start with basically 80% of their character is created for you, and the other 20% you design at the start of the game, and then all of the character points that you accumulate as you go through the game, which are like experience points, you can allocate them yourself. So you're building all 5 characters are being built by you in whatever way you want.
So each of the characters sort of have an intended direction, but you can just say no.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, you take the warrior type companion, Kahindi, who you encounter straight away in the village, and you can absolutely just go, nah, he's going to be a scout.
Right.
He'd obviously be quite a strong scout because he starts with a bit of strength, which is fine because, he might be just really good with a longbow, which is a pretty tough weapon. And you might just put all of his points into scouting and survivaling and fishing and camouflaging and those kind of things, and just completely forget about all the warrior skills that you might get, like jumping and athletics and acrobatics and all that. Just forget about those. And you could take one of the characters that's obviously meant to be a mage. You don't start with any spells. You just start with some intelligence, and just go, nah, you're going to be a cleric, and just make them a cleric instead, or make them a thief if you want. No problem at all. Some of the thieves have got high intelligence too.
Right. No, that actually does sound really fun.
Yeah.
How do you handle? Because you did say there's quite a few abilities. So how do you handle displaying that information to the player?
So on your character sheet, you've got tabs, and the first on the left of your character sheet, you've got your traits, and that's kind of your strength and your intelligence, those kind of things. And then on the right side, you've got your various lists, and the first set of lists, first list is the abilities. And the second list is your skills, and the third is your spells, and the fourth are your tricks. And the tricks are kind of like things like disarm and sweep, because they're built off of other skills. So if you've got quarterstaff skill, you can get sweep for quarterstaff, and that enables you to sweep people off their feet with staff. So that's a trick. And so those 4 tabs sort of navigate through your sheet, which is a full screen kind of display. And then when you get certain items, they can add to your skills or traits or abilities, give you fresh ones or increase what you already got. And when you go into a trainer, those lists split down the middle. So you've got a left and right, and the left is you and the right is the trainer. So then you can basically just click items on the right side and learn them. So you can learn new skills, abilities, etc. And you can also upgrade the ones you've got, the number of points you've got in each of those skills, and make them more skilled. And spells as well. You can make them more powerful. And then when you get to if you're not near a trainer, you can spend your character points anyway, upgrading your abilities. Your traits. Because quite often you might be like, well, I really need additional stealth skill right now, but I'm not near a trainer, so I'll upgrade my agility, which upgrades my stealth, because it's based on agility. Yeah.
Right.
And the same goes for all your other agility-based skills. They'll all go up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a way that you can upgrade on the fly. And I find it's quite useful to upgrade your mana reserves as you play through the wilderness, because you'll end up with quite a few experience points you've accrued from quests. But what would be useful right now is more mana to cast spells more often.
One thing I didn't really ask you properly earlier, and this is kind of the last major thing I did want to talk about. The inspiration for the game. Obviously, there are like clear, obvious things that people can look at. They're like, oh, early Baldur's Gate, things like that. But I do want to hear about those. But if there's anything sort of out of the ordinary that someone maybe wouldn't expect, I always like to hear about those as well.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I would say that there's some of the aspects of the game are influenced by movies. So if you look at, I've often said that as the pitch for my game, that it is Conan the Barbarian meets Jurassic Park. So Conan the Barbarian being a really fascinating movie based on a series of books, it actually has a mix of technology levels in the world of Hyboria. So that's a real influence, because a lot of the areas of Hyboria are primitive, prehistoric. And the other thing is that Jurassic Park is just the most well-known movie that features dinosaurs eating people. And that's a big part of this game too. So that's two big influences. Going back to video games, I can definitely go further back than I usually use Baldur's Gate 1 and Fallout as obvious as things that people recognize.
Yeah.
But I'll go back further. Really, the main influence for this game is the gold box games from the DOS time. So we're talking about Hall of Radiance and the Kryn games, Champions of Kryn, etc. So those games had turn-based combat, and they had an adventuring D&D type of feel, and you would level up your characters, and you would go to the shops in the city, and you sell your loot, and it's all that kind of stuff. I was a big fan of those type of games, and Eye of the Beholder as well. But people would often talk about classic role-playing games like Ultima, Bard's Tale. Those are less of an influence on my game, but they're certainly on later games, later role-playing games. XCOM is a really big influence because of its turn-based combat. It's very detailed. That was 1994. But before Julian Gallop made XCOM, he made a couple of other really cool games. One was called Laser Squad, 1990, and the other was called Lords of Chaos, and that's a fantasy game with turn-based combat. And that's a real influence too, because you would summon creatures in that game, so it was a lot of the game was based around these animals, and I sort of felt I took a lot from that, and from those two games in their turn-based combat, because they're action points. Very few games had action points before Julian Gallop came along. He basically invented it. Trying to think what else was a big influence. Just looking at my shelf, all these old games on there. Dungeon Master, 1987, is one of the first dungeon crawler games. So you spend basically your whole time was spent in a dungeon. It's all about the monsters and traps. It had real-time combat, but it had a 4-player party. So there was quite a lot of tactics involved in keeping all of your party members alive. In that respect, it was pretty similar to Pools of Radiance, which had a 6-player party. And I'd say that you could throw in Diablo into that mix. Because when Diablo came along, it really gave a finger to 3D games. It was 1996, and everybody else was making 3D, but Blizzard said, "Nah, we're still really good at our 2D games." So they made Diablo, and it sold so many copies. It was an absolute work of art, that game. But it's not very similar to my game, except in terms of the isometric aspect, I guess.
Sure.
But it's that's more of an action. Yeah. I think, you probably wouldn't recognize this game, but in 2004, made a game, Temple of Elemental Evil.
Temple of Elemental Evil. Oh, I've definitely seen the game before. I've not played it.
Okay. It's based on a classic D&D set of modules from the early 80s, and it's basically Baldur's Gate with turn-based combat in a dungeon. It's absolutely awesome, and I love it, and it's one of the biggest influences on my game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I hope that's enough to tell you where this game's coming from.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid idea, and I hope the game goes well. Like you've clearly got something there. If you already got 4,000 wish lists, you're 2.5 years in. You've still got quite a bit of work to do with the content you still want to add. But what you have there is already really good.
Oh, thank you. I do find that people enjoy the experience when they play it, and that's the main thing. Is I just wanted to make sure that I feel that the game loop is fun, and fun in the respect that a nerd like myself likes to enjoy a turn-based combat is fun. Because some people love their action games, but this is not an action game. Every turn is deliberately thought through, like a game of chess against monsters. And I think that people respond to that, even though there is, yes, I agree, there's still work to be done and there's still hours of content to be built. There's an element there that is solid. This core loop is it's performant, so there's basically it'll run on a potato at 60 frames a second, and like seriously a potato like 4 gigabytes of, and it will provide players with a sense of enjoyment if they're into that kind of thing. And it is a niche. I'll say that there's some games that are too niche, but I think the niche for role-playing games has gotten quite a lot bigger since Baldur's Gate 3 came out. And I think people are looking for more of the same, and hopefully they won't mind the retro graphics.
Yeah, I do agree there. Like, it's for a long time this genre was kinda dead. Like, you had these you have the games that people were a fan of for a long time. You have people modifying Divinity, for example. But like a new game, Baldur's Gate 3 was kind of like the last one that was there. I don't even know if anything else has been released since Baldur's Gate 3 that was a CRPG that anyone even talked about. And clearly there is still desire for this kind of game. So yeah, check it out, I guess.
I think if you wanted to look back in the last 10 years, it's been pretty quiet, but you've got Shadowrun, the trilogy, which is very similar in style to this game. You've got Pillars of Eternity, which is real time but very similar. What else is there? You've got Divinity Original Sin, obviously, which sort of set the new standard for this type of game. And very few others. Few others.
It's kind of like RTS at this point.
Wasteland 2 and 3.
Yeah, it's kind of like RTS at this point, where there are games that exist, and maybe every so often one thing comes out, but it's definitely not like the heyday of these genres. Yeah.
I'm hoping that it comes back in a big way. It doesn't. I mean, from my perspective, like I don't need this genre to be huge, because I'm only aiming for 10 or 20,000 unit sales. Like it doesn't need. That's a tiny amount. There's 250 million users on Steam, so this is as niche as it gets, really. So I don't need it to be the genre to come back. I just need that niche to exist. Sure. For that type of player, and I know that type of player exists because. If you go onto the tabletop gaming on Reddit, there's 1 million users. So that genre is there. Yeah.
Well, as I said a couple of times, I hope it goes well. And
thank you.
Yeah. So if people want to wishlist the game or follow development, where can they head to?
I would just go straight to Steam and type in Scourge of the Reptiles. It seems to be the way that people are finding these days as they're typing it in there. You can also find it on YouTube. If you search out Scourge of the Reptiles, you'll find it. You can even just type it straight into Google and you'll find it as the first entry will be the Steam entry, I believe. That's probably the easiest way. Just Google, Steam, or YouTube. YouTube will get you to the trailer.
Let's see. Yep, first one is the Steam page. Second one is the Steam DB page. So that works.
It works.
Which is that's nice that when you search for the game, you find the game.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't have to do anything for that search engine optimization.
Mm-hmm.
It is basically Steam has done that for me. So they've done a lot for me actually. Like when I first started marketing, I was getting about 1 to 2 wish lists per day on average, and now it's up to past 10 per day. So Steam is doing something that I don't have to pay them for. So I'm happy. I'm very happy to.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And hopefully any upcoming fests you're involved in, those go well as well. Do you have any plans to take the game to any cons before release, or is AvCon the last one you're going to do?
I'll do Sage again. Sage is SA Film Corp in Adelaide. That's in February. I have no plans to go to PAX. It's kind of expensive for a tiny team.
Sure.
But I've heard that it's really and I don't currently have any line up, but they're always coming. They're always coming all the time. So yeah, if you follow me on Blue Sky, that's where the biggest amount of stuff is for on the social media. You'll see any festivals that I get into or post on there.
Awesome. Yeah. Nothing else you want to mention, or is?
No, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, we've covered a fair bit.
Awesome. I'll do my outro and then we will sign off.
Sure. Thanks, Brody. Thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure, and I've loved it.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to have you on. Okay, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. Sometimes I stream those. Well, not lately, recently, but I need to get back to it. I've got the gaming channel, Brody on Games. Right now, I'll be playing through probably a finished Kazan by the time you guys are seeing this. So, Metal Gear Solid, baby, and also Yakuza 6. And if you're watching the video version of this, you can find the audio version on basically every podcast platform. There is an RSS feed. It's on iTunes, all of this stuff. Search Tech Over Tea and you will find it. To find the video version, it is on YouTube, Tech Over Tea. So, how do you want to sign us off? What do you want to say?
Just say, check out Scourge of the Reptiles on Steam, watch the trailer, and hope you like Dinosaur. That's what you're going to get.
I think you're the first person I've had on that actually promotes their game in the outro.
Isn't that what you're supposed to?
Apparently not.